What's going on there, guys? Good afternoon. It's the Earthmaster here on this weekend, Saturday, September 24th, 12:32 p.m. California time. Latest quake shows some activity ramping up right there on the Petrolia station on the left side bottom of the screen. That's coming from a 4.8. Actually, it looks like they downgraded it there to a 4.6 earthquake right there at the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. Let's go ahead and check out the latest activity here on the USGS map, showing that 4.6 just offshore of Northern California. Looks like that out into the Pacific plate boundary. Of course, Cascadia sits right about here at this conjunction here of these plate areas. You got the San Andreas Fault, the northern end, of course, that runs down through the bay and into Southern California. And then you got the Pacific plate boundary with the Gorda plate. This here is a microplate, the Gorda plate here. Kind of kicking up there. Little kind of surprised that we're getting some fours there, but it is in an area that does see some activity, historically anyway. It's been a while since we've seen a lot of activity there. Looks like this is still under automatic status, 4.6 at a pretty shallow depth there of 2.4 kilometers. This could get revised far as location and magnitude goes. Far as the, let's see what we got here. These are all, let's see what we got. Hold on a second here. Go over here to the magnitude, see if we got any other stations. Looks like a couple of them reporting 4.5, 4.5, and at least from those two stations there. So they'll review all the data and whatnot as far as the arrival times of the waves and whatnot to each station. That way they can decipher and get an exact magnitude and depth there for that 4.5 off the coast, 4.6. Hard to say, a little uncertainty. Either way, some activity definitely ramping up there, it looks like. We did have a 2.0, 24 kilometers deep, right smack dab on the Cascadia megathrust area right here. That one coming in yesterday afternoon time frame, 24 kilometers deep. I want to bring up all the 7 days of all magnitudes here. And you can see we've had a little bit of earthquake activity here into the southern end of the Cascadia. And if you look at the depth of these earthquakes, they're all pretty consistent with Cascadia subduction zone quakes down there about 26 kilometers. Some a little bit more shallower, but all contributed to the monster that sleeps offshore. We also did have one way out here in the Cascadia fold and thrust belt. That one coming in a couple days ago, 1.9 right at the locked area. And some further quakes upshore along the Oregon coast, seen at 2.5 near the Tillamook, Oregon area. Beautiful area of Oregon, but not good for tsunami potential. 17 kilometers deep there into the Cascadia, and also some up north along the Forks, Washington area, 37 kilometer deep, 3.5. So look, oh, okay, they did upgrade it to 4.8. See how it kind of revises itself here? I bet you it's been reviewed. Either that or more stations have chimed in. Okay, it has been reviewed by a professional seismologist there, and they can't really hide that signature on the map, right? Let me show you guys that signature once again. That 4 point, there it goes, just getting off the screen there. But that's a pretty good signature on the live seismograph station there in the Petrolia area. And a lot of times this area does get some microquakes and whatnot, and they really don't report those. But when it comes to something as a pretty much 3.5 and above, they literally have no choice but to, because it's pretty prominent on the seismograph station. So that's going to be this one right here, Petrolia. Notice that well-defined spike of the 4.8 just outside of the Eureka, California area offshore. Alrighty, let's see what else we got here. Definitely watching the west coast here. Seems to be lighting up a little bit. Also out around the Antelope Valley area, not Southern California, but over here around Nevada, California border, 2.1 near Walker, California. That's an area that's seen a 6-pointer last year, if I remember correctly, in this area. Aftershock continues. Aftershock activity continues in that region. A little bit of movement in Ridgecrest today. Notice it's starting to fill in there along that fracture zone that fractured back in 2019, July 4th and July 5th. A little bit of movement over here along the Garlock fault structure as well. It's a shear fault. I think this one I think it's pretty dangerous in terms of possibly triggering the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault and vice versa. I could see both of these going at the same time, or at least triggering one another. It's been a little while since the Garlock Fault ruptured up here. There's a little bit slower accumulated slip rate, and same for the San Andreas Fault. It's been over 300 years, although this area here has a much higher slip rate accumulation than the Garlock Fault shear zone. What do we got down here, though? Looks like a couple small earthquakes within the last hour up against the San Jacinto Mountains on the San Jacinto Fault zone there. Low activity kicking up down here around the Imperial Fault as well. Looks like a little 1.3. That one coming in earlier this morning time frame. Not a whole lot going on up in Washington, aside from these little quakes up here, 2.5. This one actually came in this morning time frame. It looks like 17 kilometers deep. And I'm going to bring up the tremor map to kind of show you guys what's going on here. Let's bring up the tremor, Cascadia tremor, that is. Not earthquake activity, but this is a very sophisticated, sensitive equipment monitoring thing they got going on up here, monitoring the tremor activity along the Cascadia subduction zone. This is pretty much just slow slip movement downstream where these two plates kind of, where the Juan de Fuca plate subducts underneath the North American plate over here to the east. Kind of starts offshore up here and down here into northern Cal, and it's getting shoved basically towards the east, towards the North American continent, underneath northern Cal, Oregon, Washington, and the Vancouver Island ranges. That's the Cascadia subduction zone. A lot of people have heard about it, a lot of people haven't. And surprisingly, a lot of times when I go visit up here along the Oregon coastline on location, a lot of people don't even know about it. People that live there, right on the coast, right in the tsunami zone. They see the tsunami zone signs and whatnot, the evacuation routes, but they don't know exactly, far as, just because you live along an ocean, any tsunami could hit you, but a lot of people don't know about this mega quake potential out there. Okay, so tremor activity has been quite high in this area of Oregon, and also down here in this area, a little bit further south. I want to bring up we can bring up the last week or so of movement, and we'll check that out and see what they got. Again, most of the activity has been confined here to this region. So as the Juan de Fuca plate slips underneath the North American plate slowly, these are just vibrational frequencies that are being picked up, low frequencies, kind of like a rubbing of the plates at a very slow movement, folks. Not like a sudden release of earthquakes. It picks up these tremors, and most of the tremor has been confined up here to Oregon and this part of Oregon as well, down south of Eugene, underneath this area, about 35, 45 kilometers. And as that happens, ultimately, I believe strain is adding up here. It only makes sense, right? Otherwise, we would see tremor and earthquake activity continuously up here as the tremor is taking place downstream. So occasionally we do see, and we do kind of verify, if you will, what I'm saying with these little quakes here that happen a little bit further upstream, up towards the locked area, just like this 2.5 in the Tillamook, Oregon area. The tremor is down dip a little bit further eastward here on the map, meaning it's downward, and back upstream as the locked area sits right here. Back upstream, it's putting further strain up here as we go towards the locked area and the megathrust zone. So I see these a lot when we get these consistent tremor events in a fashion kind of like we're doing right now. Now, there's not a whole lot of tremor down in Northern California, and there hasn't been right now. So this activity that we see in the 4.8 at the southern end of the Cascadia, but kind of on the Pacific side. Let me see if they've revised that. It's still on the Pacific side of the plate boundary, but pretty shallow. So I think a lot of times when we see earthquake activity out here, things are completely stuck. It doesn't want to be shoved down anymore underneath the North American plate. So we start seeing these earthquakes kind of behind it, behind the Cascadia subduction zone or somewhere around it. Just because we can't really, there's not enough force right now, pressure to shove that more further down underneath the North American plate. But up here, there is. And that's kind of the center portion of the Cascadia subduction zone. And that's where we're seeing all that tremor and ultimately some further quakes upstream towards the, further towards the surface area and the locked area of the Cascadia. So it's something to watch and monitor pretty closely here, folks. We do see tremors a lot, quite a bit actually. But when it's in one area, it's kind of something to watch pretty closely here. Kind of, you know, we got this area here kind of being subducted, the Juan de Fuca plate, but these other areas down here to the south and up here to the north appear to be stuck and not wanting to go. So a lot of times what's going on here, we're just getting one section of the Juan de Fuca plate being pushed down there. Kind of got to be adding further, much further strain up at the surface level towards the subduction zone itself. It would only make sense because that energy isn't just magically disappearing. We're kind of winding this baby up more and more, tighter and tighter. And a lot of times, like I say, we can't get certain areas of the Juan de Fuca plates to subduct more. So we start seeing these little earthquakes in and around the Cascadia. And in fact, over the last couple days here, we've seen some further movement over here along the Blanco fracture zone, kind of adding up to the strain and pressure out here along the Cascadia itself. So we'll watch that. Definitely watch it pretty closely. As far as the world view goes, let's see what we got. Recent activity. Let's go back to the 2.5 and above. Looks like around the Indian Ocean out here, we had a 5.0 coming in just a little bit ago out there in those fracture zones. This is divergent boundary separation of the seafloor. Had that 6.2 yesterday coming into the Java Trench. As far as new activity goes here, doesn't look like we've seen anything newer. One earthquake around the Banda Sea. That one 4.6 coming in, looks like late afternoon time frame. So for the most part, any newer movement is lacking here in this area for today. The Mariana Trench up here. Did see one over, actually this morning time frame it looks like, into the northern Mariana Trench. This one pretty deep though. Look at that, well inland or well to the west of the plate boundary, but down dip way into the trench, 215 kilometers deep. That ultimately will add further stress up here in this region, so gotta watch that. But at the same time, this whole plate, this Philippine plate here, is being squeezed a lot by areas here to the west. And also here to the east. But look at Solomon Islands. It's got one earthquake, 4.5 in our seismic gap zone. Seismic gap meaning it really hasn't been hit as far as decent activity goes over the last week. If you take a look at the last week of activity, pretty much everywhere has been hit. Well, we're starting to fill in here along the west coast, but I don't know if we're done here or not. Might have to play catch up. But down here in Mexico, they had their fair share of earthquakes along the Middle America Trench. South America got kicked there with a 6.2 at the southern end of the Peru-Chile Trench, and quite a few other quakes up there. Of course, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Java Trench, Taiwan, Japan, all getting hit pretty good. Just these couple areas to watch here around the Solomon Islands. Aside from this this earthquake this morning, this was blank right in here, but I still think we need to see a little bit more earthquake activity there. It's kind of lacking. And the Mariana Trench. Now the one that kicked up, where's the deeper one at? Hold on a second here. Right there. One day all magnitudes. That's a little odd. 4.4. You go back. Oh, okay, it's below the 4.5 threshold. That's why it's not showing up. But aside from that deep one there, surface rupture along the Mariana Trench has been awfully quiet. The Izu Trench up here as well. Not a whole lot of activity if you look on the world view over the last week. And this is a major zone of slip rate. A lot of accumulated slip rate in this area. Japan got hit pretty good far as the frequency of earthquakes and the depth there. Some of those down there about 94 kilometers. But also lacking is the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench up here. I think those two areas, I would say 3 areas, need to be on guard. And the further east you go here, along the Aleutian Trench, the less accumulated slip rate there is up in this region. There is a lot, but not as much as we go over here to the west along this plate boundary. The direction of the plates here, the northwest movement, puts this area under a lot of strain and slip rate at all times. All right, let's see what we got for Hawaii. Zooming in here, a little bit of activity around Kilauea Volcano. It's up here. A couple earthquakes in the red. As far as Mauna Loa goes, their swarming activity looks like they've had a couple more overnight. Nothing kicking up so far this morning or afternoon time frame. Looking at about 47 earthquakes in a little swarming fashion. The USGS volcano site did put out an update yesterday and chatted about this is all a little bit above background seismic level, but all concentrations of gas and whatnot and GPS remain calm for now. But it's something to watch whenever we see some swarming around a volcano like that, Mauna Loa. Most of the activity down around the Pahala area, all consistent with normal background activity because they're always swarming, almost always. Let's see, Alaska. Let's go ahead and zoom up here, north to Alaska. A little bit of activity up north around the Brooks Range, it looks like, a little 2.3. Some activity outside of Denali as well. But overall, main activity looks to be, or the activity in general looks to be pretty consistent there with normal levels. A 4.8 outside of Anchorage to the east. This is kind of like the only oddball quake that I could see. A little bit of movement around Anchorage itself. So 4.8 at 39 kilometers there into the southern Alaska region. Let's see what else we got. Caribbean Plate. Getting some activity down south here into the Middle America Trench off the coast of El Salvador and Nicaragua area. These are coming in from, looks like overnight time frame. And the Puerto Rico Trench over here, a little spotty, very spotty, or swarming here that we normally look for on the southwest edge of Puerto Rico. That's only 2 earthquakes or 3 earthquakes here in the mix. That's pretty low far as their general seismic swarm that has been occurring for a little while. The past couple days it's been absent there. Alrighty, well, let's see what else we got here. The Atlantic Ocean, way up north. Can't forget way up here, right? Seen that one coming in way earlier, up there around the Jane Mayen area, north of Iceland, east of the Greenland area. Let's see. Aside from that, man, let's see if Yellowstone's swarming. Let's check out some Yellowstone activity. Kind of looks like we're kicking up a little bit here earlier this afternoon and morning time frame. A couple small earthquakes there in the mix. You guys see those little earthquakes there? But generally overnight it's been spotty and not as intense as days past as far as the earthquake swarming goes there at Yellowstone National Park. But definitely keep an eye on it. A lot of times we can look for, not all the time though, but a lot of times we'll see these swarms kick up and we'll see the west coast and parts of the North American plate there really kicking up in terms of earthquake activity. And that gives me a general overview that seismic activity is definitely on the move here across the northwestern or the western portion of the North American plate and the of course the eastern portion here of the Pacific plate. A very sensitive area when it comes to the dynamics in this area. Cascadia is it's a monster. It's a danger for the folks up here. A danger for me too. I live here in Northern California. Fortunately for me, I'm not going to get a tsunami outside of Chico here, but we'll definitely be in a very strong shaking category if we get a full rupture here of a 9.0 or greater along the entire length of the Cascadia. Just something to watch, folks. This area did see, kind of looks like that's in the area that seen the 6.2, I believe, last year, towards the end of last year. Remember that 6-pointer that kicked off here and had a migration of swarming here that kind of stretched from this area all the way in a fashion. You could see the line stretching deep, a little bit deeper as it went towards the northeast into the Cascadia subduction zone, but down there a little bit further. You know, a lot of people here on the map, the Cascadia obviously sits off to the west here. That's the plate boundary, but it goes underneath here, and it goes well underneath. And that's how you get all these volcanoes up here, the Cascade Arc volcanoes and whatnot. A lot of stuff going on down there below the North American plate. And a lot of stuff going on up here along the locked area. You know, it's just a matter of time, I believe. Who knows when it's going to happen? All I know is it's 322 years of built-up stress. That's a lot. Didn't happen yesterday, but it will happen in the future soon. All right, guys, space weather. Let's go ahead and do a real quick recap of that. We did see a low activity kick up overnight as far as the KP index go, up around the 4 range. They were forecasting between 4 and 5 for a G1 class storm. And kind of looks like it peaked out around KP index at 4, and now we're kind of dwindling down around the 3 range. And that should be pretty much the same story, looks like tonight and possibly into tomorrow as well. But things are going to go back to the green category after that. But we do have a let's see the latest imagery. That looks old. Newest one here shows this coronal hole that's over here towards the eastern limb. Looks like that thing's kind of growing a little bit along with that sunspot that is now turning into view. We'll keep an eye on both of these spots here as they rotate towards the Earth. As far as the solar flare threat goes, there's 3110. That is the newly named one over here, and it looks like it's growing, getting some pretty close magnetic fields there. Let's see what we got for threat, flare threat potential. We are crackling with some C flares, it looks like right now, up close to the M flare over the last few hours, this morning time frame and overnight. So we'll keep an eye on that. Looks like things could be popping here with an M flare here soon. And I'm sure it's going to be coming from that one. So overall threat right now, let's see what we got here. About the same. These guys keep it pretty consistent. 99% chance C flare, 30% chance for M flare, X flare around 5. Although I don't think there's any X flare potential out there. But it's been, like I say, it's been kind of like that for a while now. But we'll watch it. Either way, I think 3110 up here poses the higher risk of some flaring right now. And we'll keep an eye on that for sure. Current data, pretty minimal. No unusual conditions there across the board as far as the real-time solar wind stream goes. All right, going to back out of here and keep an eye on the west coast. Remember the station there is Petrolia, California. That's the one to monitor for earthquake activity in and around northern Oregon, southern Oregon. Of course, if we get a big one, I'm talking about 9.0, all of these stations will light up. Might be hitting some sooner and some later with the P&S waves. But the station to watch here in Northern California for some movement is the Petrolia station right here. That's just southwest of Eureka area, and it picked up that 4-pointer pretty nicely. But now the map looks kind of calm as far as the graph goes. Have a good day, folks. Have a good afternoon. We'll chat you guys a little bit later tonight. Saturday night, party night, right? Hopefully we'll get Missy Mimi's on in here, and we'll have a little update video tonight, maybe some question and answers. Till then, take care. We'll catch you guys later on. Enjoy your weekend.